Let's take a look at some questions that might show up on the test here for Unit 3-2, Supply Chapter on the Theory of Production. Hopefully you've had a chance to review all of your notes. It's okay to read the book too. And then of course the videos posted there at Google Classroom. Let's take a look at some questions that are likely to show up here. Here's the first one here. The theory of production deals with the relationship between the factors of production and the outputs of goods and services. That is true. Factors of production that we're dealing with here are the number of workers. And as we change this, we get an increase in our output, total product. Next one, the law of variable proportions states that in the short run, so here's the law of variable proportions at work here through this production schedule. The law of variable proportions states that in the short run, output will not change as one production input is varied while the others remain constant. So true-false question's always tricky. Most of this is true. There's just one word here that's making it not true, and that's not. Because it will change. That's the whole point of the law of variable proportions, that as we change or vary this input, we get a change in the output. And so this is false because of not. Take that word out, it becomes a true statement. The production function describes the relationship of changes in output to different amounts of a single input while other inputs are held constant. That's right. So we've simplified the model here, and the only input we're dealing with here is labor, the number of workers, which is something that occurs in what they call the short run, that hopefully you recall from studying your notes. In the short run, a short period of time, you can change just typically one variable of input, and that's the labor. So you can hire and fire workers relatively easily compared to trying to create other resources. That's true. The production function does describe the relationship of changes. That's the whole point of this thing that we've been working with this week. An increase in output as each new input is added, as in the addition of a worker, describes stage one of the stages of production. We're going to call that true. Increase in output, as in the addition of a worker, describes stage one of the stages of production. And more specifically, the marginal product continues to increase. I am going to go with a true on this statement. The theory of production deals with the relationship between the factors of production and cost. We haven't talked about cost of raw materials. I don't know what that means right now. Fixed cost we haven't discussed. The output of goods and services. That's the whole point of this particular unit, is understanding that as we increase a particular input here, labor, we're going to have some change in output. The output of goods and services. That's the answer we like on that one. In this production schedule, production stage 3 begins with the addition of which numbered worker? Always want to use marginal product to do your analysis here. And we see that it's increasing, and at some point in stage 1, it's going to reach a peak and then fall off and start to decrease, which is right there. So it looks like at the 6th worker, stage 2 would begin. Let's see if that's an option in our answers. There it is right there. We like that one. 6. 6th worker would begin. Oh. Stage 3. I need to read a little closer there, don't I? Too early in the morning. Stage 3 begins. Well, now that we know where stage 2 is. Decreasing, and at some point it really decreases, goes below 0, so now we have negative values. So, stage 3 would begin at 11. 11th worker, that's the one we want right there. All of the following are stages of production except increasing returns. That is one of the stages. That is stage 1. Diminishing returns. That is stage 2. Negative returns. Stage 3. Equaling returns. No. So that is not one of the stages of production. The period of production that allows producers to change only the amount of the variable input called labor is long run, short run, production function, stage of production. That is short run, within a short period of time, generally less than a year. In the long run, you can change everything. You can buy new factories, new tools. You can educate people. You can do all kinds of things in a long period of time. But in the short run, the quickest thing you can do as far as the inputs required to produce things is to hire and fire people. A production function shows changes in output in response to changes in input, changes in input that result from changes in output. That sounds backwards. The optimum level of production, we haven't learned that. The optimum level of the 4 factors of production, no. A production function, this is the function and the corresponding graph, of course. There's the production function. Changes in output in response to changes in input. Here's our input, number of workers, revealing a change in output, total product. Changes in output, yep, to changes in input. So there it is right there. There's our production function graphed, showing that nice steep curve as marginal product increases. And then as stage 2, marginal product starts to decrease, so the slope starts to level off a little bit, starts to level off more, reaches a peak, and then things start to go negative as far as marginal product goes and starts to make that dive in stage 3. So our answer is here, changes in output in response to changes in input. In what order do the 3 stages of production occur? Negative returns, no. Diminishing returns, no. Increasing returns, let's start with that. So right here, increasing returns, nice steep curve. Increasing returns, diminishing returns, negative returns. Yes, that's what's happening. Increasing, start to diminish, curve flattens out, and then starts to go negative as far as the product, marginal product that gets produced. Do remember, though, that we're looking at total product, and the production function is revealing the marginal product influence as total product changes as we add more workers. The stages of production are based on the way total product changes over time, the way marginal product changes as variable inputs are added, the way input changes in response to business decisions, no. The way output changes independent of input, definitely not that one. The way total product changes over time. Okay, it starts to sound like a pretty reasonable answer, but we haven't said anything about over time. We're talking about increasing number of workers, not time. So our variable input is not time. The way marginal product changes as variable inputs are added. Yes, and that's what happens here. The graph is revealing the change in marginal product. So we like B. The blank is a period of production in which producers can adjust the quantities of their resources, including capital. Okay, so that would be the long run. Over a long period of time, you can adjust all of these other resources, capital being like factories, tools, and equipment. So that would be the long run as a period of production where you can do that. The law of variable proportion states that in the blank, output will change as one input is varied while the others are held constant. Okay, one input. So we've been dealing with labor right there. So that's going to be a short run. The law of variable proportion states that in the short run, less than a year, output will change as one input is varied while the others are held constant. And the last one to practice here. The 3 stages of production are increasing returns, blank returns, and negative returns. And we've talked about that here in stage 2. Diminishing returns is the fill in the blank right there. Diminishing returns. So hopefully that'll help you out as you prepare for our test on Unit 3-2, the theory of production.